The Black Goat is one of the most important figures in the narrative of Night in the Woods, but we don't find out about its existence until the very end of the game, when the player has roughly an hour to an hour and a half left of playtime to go. Between its late arrival in the plot and its nature as an eldritch entity, understanding it, its purpose, its identity, its origins, is not an easy task. Fortunately, the developers of Night in the Woods left us plenty of breadcrumbs to follow. So join me as we attempt to unravel the mystery of the Black Goat. But before I go on, if you are a Night in the Woods fan, then please be sure to like, subscribe, and consider lending me some extra support with a YouTube channel membership or over on Patreon. My dream is to make these videos full-time someday, and by doing any of those things, you'll be helping to make that dream a reality. To solve this mystery, we're going to be taking a deep dive into everything from Lovecraftian cosmology to the supplemental games. But let's start by reviewing everything we know for certain about the Black Goat. As mentioned earlier, we don't even hear about this mysterious entity until the end of the game, during May's second and final confrontation with the cult. The Black Goat, as they describe it, resides at the bottom of an endless hole in the mine. They say that it's not black like the color, but the void of space, a starless sky, and that it's hungry like we wouldn't believe. Specifically, it's hungry for people, the so-called undesirables the cult sacrifices to it. Every few months, the Black Goat starts to sing, and in response, the cult sends out one of their members to find someone to sacrifice. After the Black Goat has been fed, the cult believes that the town prospers, and in their view, if they continue to do this every time the Black Goat sings, then Possum Springs will eventually return to its former glory. This viewpoint was passed down to them by Ed Scudder, the cult's founder, who originally discovered the Black Goat back in 1992. He was working with a group that had come to the mine to take up bootlegging. They spruced the place up, even built a new elevator. Eventually, Ed burst through a wall and found the hole. One of his companions, Jim Dorney, fell in the hole, and when Ed called out to him, it wasn't Jim, but the Black Goat that answered back. Ed then founded the cult, presumably starting off with his fellow bootleggers, and now they've spent the last 25 years continuing to feed the Black Goat. They believe that when they started feeding the Black Goat, the town's economy stabilized, and that after the first sacrifice, flowers started blooming on the hills outside town. This is, obviously, their deluded perception of things, but we'll talk more about that and the metaphor at play here when I cover the cult itself at the end of this series. Now, while most of what the Black Goat does is feed on people, there are those that it takes a particular liking to. Such people are said to have the Glimmer, and as a result, have some form of supernatural powers. In Ed Scudder's case, he could walk through walls, much like Ide, who in all likelihood has both the Glimmer and is his descendant, as I discussed in my last theory video. Others who appear to have the Glimmer include May's grandfather, Arthur Borowski, Germ, and Germ's grandmother. The Glimmer isn't all phasing through walls and universe hopping, however. It does have negative side effects, such as the visions May receives of the well and the apocalyptic version of Possum Springs, along with the constant headaches she struggles with during the back half of the game, which, I'd wager, are a result of the fact that May can probably hear the Black Goat sing stronger than most others. It's also implied that the Black Goat is the source of her mental illness, of her depression, and the episodes of depersonalization and disassociation that she suffers from. By extension, this means that the Black Goat is also responsible for the killer incident, for her very first episode of depersonalization, which led to a ton of hardship for May and her family. How the Glimmer manifested in the first place is a topic for another video. But for now, what we need to know is that according to the cult, it's the Black Goat that imparts these supernatural gifts onto these chosen individuals, along with some pretty nasty side effects. So we've got a Black Goat who sings to its followers, urging them to do terrible deeds and imparting magical gifts that function as a bit of a double-edged sword. All of this is classic Lovecraftian storytelling. For good examples of this in other video games, look to games like Dragon Age or Mass Effect, two properties that draw heavily from Lovecraft, where both the old gods and the reapers are said to sing to their followers, urging them to do terrible things while imparting gifts that are beneficial and corrupting in equal measure. The black goat functions exactly the same way. And interestingly enough, we can once again turn to Lovecraft to understand its name. In the Cthulhu mythos, there's an outer goddess called the Black Goat of the Woods with 1,000 young. There is no doubt that the Black Goat of Night in the Woods is a reference to Lovecraft's. They're definitely not the same. Lovecraft's is referred to as female, while the one from Night in the Woods is apparently male. But there are definitely some similarities there, and in building this connection, it actually helps drive home one of the key elements of the cult, their racist beliefs. One of the groups targeted by the cult for sacrifice are immigrants, and as many have discussed over the last several years, Lovecraft had some really racist viewpoints. So it's fitting for a conservative murder cult with xenophobic views to be worshipping an entity clearly inspired by the works of Lovecraft. Deepening this reference is the fact that Lovecraft's Black Goat and the Black Goat of Night in the Woods both manifest in a similar fashion to some degree. In a letter to a friend, Lovecraft described his Black Goat as an evil cloud-like entity, which lines up with this moment during the climax, when May seems to be struggling with the Black Goat in a more direct fashion. So we know its influences, but that still leaves us with questions about its in-game origins. Fortunately, there is one other piece of evidence to consider: the painting in the basement of the Possum Springs Historical Society. If May goes there with Greg during the ghost hunting portion of the game, she'll eventually find this weird painting while they're attempting to escape from Ide. Greg calls it bad art, but May knows it's something more, knows she's seen it somewhere. Obviously, this is the Black Goat as its followers choose to depict it. There's still a lot to be answered here, like why this painting is in the Historical Society in the first place, and who made it. But for now, let's just focus on its appearance. The way the Black Goat is depicted in this painting bears a striking resemblance to Eibon the Singer, one of the constellations from Longest Night, a supplemental game put out by the team before Night in the Woods. According to legend, Eibon drank the ocean to make the fish cry so he could finally hear their voices and teach them to sing. So in Eibon's appearance and his mythology, we have some clear similarities to the murder cult's Eldritch Daddy. And in light of this, I honestly think it's pretty safe to say that Eibon and the Black Goat are indeed one and the same. But what does the Black Goat want? What's its ultimate goal? Well, as is typically the case with Lovecraftian entities, their desires are beyond our comprehension. They exist on a plane of thought unrecognizable to you or I. But it sure does seem to enjoy feeding on people. And though the cult is defeated at the end of the game, I doubt the same is true for the Black Goat itself. Meaning that if there ever was a Night in the Woods 2, I'm sure that the Eldritch entity would rear its Lovecraftian head again, in some way, shape, or form. So, in summary, from a behind-the-scenes perspective, the Black Goat is a reference to H.P. Lovecraft's Black Goat of the Woods, a connection that deepens the ideology of the murder cult. And in-universe, it appears that the Black Goat's true identity is Eibon, one of the constellations seen in Longest Night and a major figure in the world's mythology. Naturally, this raises a lot of questions about the cosmology of Night in the Woods, and just how present so many of these figures are in the game. Questions remain about the Skycat and the strangely omniscient janitor, all of which are worth exploring. But first, it really is time that we talk about the Glimmer. How did the Black Goat forge a connection and impart supernatural powers onto so many families from Possum Springs, like the Scudders, the Whartons, and the Borowskis? And how long has it been trapped in that pit anyway? Looking back at the origins of the town itself, the answer is clear to me. So join me next month as we dive into the origins of the Glimmer, the Black Goat, and the true, untold history of Possum Springs. Thanks for watching. Huge shout out to my Night in the Woods collaborators Jordi, Jaen, Moreno, and Wolf.Godwin for my channel art and the music for these videos. Huge thanks to my silver and gold tier channel members, including James Pruitt, Raven Lampkin, and Corey Matson, who receive early access to these videos through donations of $5 to $10 a month. Next week, I'll be dropping a very special video for you guys. The kind of video I've been looking forward to making ever since business picked up here on the channel. In it, I'll be taking a look at the 10 best games I played in 2023. See you guys then!